Hello, everyone. I'm happy to be back with another Young Indian, part of the Voice of the Young series. Right now, we have with us Manomay Ghoshal. Let's listen to him. Over to you, Manomay.
Right, so thank you. And thank you for everyone who has tuned in. So, just a bit about me. I am Manomay Ghoshal. I am a first year law student at the University of Delhi. I have a general inclination towards the non-profit space and towards policy in general. In back in 2020, when COVID was just starting out, I co-founded with two of my friends from school an organization called Students for India. Initially as a relief initiative for everything that was happening around us, and like later we expanded into other spaces like menstrual welfare, and now we've pivoted completely to that. So it started as a small effort of three friends, and at its peak it turned into an organization that had more than 500 interns and volunteers from all over the country working with us. And today I would just want to talk about my experiences in the non-profit space, about what I think of it in general, what some things that I have learned from my experiences, and some peculiarities of the space in India. So yeah, with that I'd like to begin.
Good. Go ahead.
Right. So first, before like going into the specifics of anything, I want to establish like a broad scope within which for like giving context to whatever I want to say in general. So as a rider to everything that I say, it's sort of like a disclaimer that yeah, I'm going to say some things that are maybe like slightly critical. I, as a general thing, I hold that most people who are trying to work in the non-profit space, I hold that they are good people with good intentions. So yeah, I just have some problems with how I see the space going these days. But yeah, it's not a personal criticism of anyone. So now to begin with, before we come to even the space, I think this is just a general issue with a very Indian sort of attitude, a peculiar Indian attitude that we have to systemic problems in general. That is that everyone wants to do just well enough that these systemic problems, things like dismal schools or the fact that a lot of times we don't have a very robust health infrastructure, or there's a very near total lack of civic amenities in a lot of places. People just want to do well enough that these problems cease to be problems for them. Nobody is really interested a lot of times in trying to fix these problems. We are actively taught to look at those who are thinking of fixing these problems as unrealistic or too idealistic. Like recently I was watching this web series, the Patal Look, and there's an exchange between two characters, like between the protagonist and another character, and I think that sums up the entire situation very beautifully. That he's telling our protagonist that the problem with the man is the fact that if we take this entire structure of systems around us to be a boat in which there is a hole, everyone is trying to save themselves and this guy is trying to save the boat. Now this has to change, this needs to change if we are trying to fix anything in a lasting manner anywhere, the operative word there being lasting. I don't have a lot of experience with much yet. I'm pretty young, but the little experience that I do have, it tells me that even when we manage to achieve some good progressive change in something, more often than not, it is contingent upon some individuals who are in that situation, and the situation just goes back to the original set of circumstances when those individuals can no longer carry the change along. This has been happening for time immemorial. Probably it will keep happening for times to come also. And yeah, it is a bit of a gloomy picture maybe, but I think it's good to know this because it's easier to make a change when we know our starting point well, and this is the starting point. This is something that needs to change. Now, more specifically, moving towards the non-profit space here. Now, NGOs can be a massive tool for good, but like anyone who has worked in the space maybe will share this experience with me. I think they are viewed with a lot of skepticism with everyone around, and maybe some of it is fair. Like, don't get me wrong, I probably won't want to work in this space for a living, but it is an undeniable and an almost all pervasive sort of perception that NGOs, trusts, societies, all of these are involved in, okay, let's say, non-transparent spheres of work. Like, I've had people tell me all sorts of things about what they believe. Things like NGOs are all there for just lip service. Some more extreme, some wearing on like almost conspiracy theory kind of things. Like, all NGOs are. I've had someone tell me that they believe all NGOs essentially are there because they're trying to launder money.
Hmm.
Now, a lot of it is maybe based on a misinformed set of ideas, on biases, on incomplete or inaccurate information. But then at the same time, and I hate to say this, but not entirely. Like, when my NGO was starting out, it was the beginning of COVID. And at that time, around that time, there's this phenomenon in the NGO space that I think became really ubiquitous. There was this mushrooming almost of a lot of student organizations, especially within this demographic of children who went to schools like mine, these so-called elite schools of, like, I was in this school called Sanskriti School in Delhi, and this is something that I saw there. I saw in other schools in the city, modern, DPS, all of these schools. Now, maybe there isn't something inherently wrong with the fact that everyone is starting an organization. It would have even been a really good thing. The problem I find is that there is a disturbingly large majority of these organizations and their founders who have a tendency for, firstly, they adopt this very grand rhetoric about how they want to change the world around them. They present a very rosy picture of the impact they're having in a very, let's say, in a very commoditized, feels good to consume way. Now, where I find the problem to be really is that the raison d'etre for a lot of these is that these founders, these children, are basically trying, they want to apply to foreign universities and either want to themselves or have been told by their career counselors to do some non-profit work as like a profile building measure. They are, what is happening here is this is a cycle where they are spending some money to essentially buy themselves some social work credit that makes them look like a good profile and makes them look like a rounded profile. They want to change the world till they go to college, and I think there is something very deeply wrong with that. Now, I'm not trying to be preachy, I'm not trying to be judgmental, but I find this to be a very disingenuous thing. Like, treating non-profit and social work like this as a means to an end, to a self-aggrandizing end,
Hmm.
it is dangerous, I think, because it removes the general attitude of service from whatever work it is that one is trying to do, and it replaces the general sense of a better world, a better situation for all of us as a collective, with a more individualistic spirit. The larger point here is that these are probably not going to change the world, and there's nothing wrong with that. Maybe, like, there's a part of me that thinks that maybe it's a good thing that privileged children with lived experiences, material realities, problems, and ideas that most people in our country do not have. Maybe it's not such a bad thing that these are not the people who are changing the world. Because if they did, maybe even those changes would be colored with how they view the world. And again, I don't know this, but maybe that is not the best thing for the situation for all of us as a collective. But in either case, the larger takeaway that I have from both of these points is that instead of trying to change the world radically, maybe it is better to identify more realistic, more workable levels of any problem that one is trying to engage with.
Hmm.
Yeah, sure, it feels less catchy. It will probably get less eyeballs. It'll not sound as nice as going about it in any other manner.
Hmm.
But in hindsight, it is what I have come to see as probably the best way to have lasting change in the space. Like, I don't think I did a lot of these things right when I was doing them. And of course, I probably nobody does, because again, there is no playbook, there's no set rule book to go by here. I was figuring out as I went, and I think a lot of people in this space, especially like the demographic that I'm talking about, these kids, That's the same thing with them, but this is one thing that I have learned from my experiences with it.
Mm.
Now with that context, I'd like to move towards the story of my organization.
Sure.
Right. So this would be around the time when we had just I was in the ninth grade had just ended, the beginning of 2020. And at that point it was still we knew that there is something called COVID that's spreading, but it still, nobody had this sense of dystopia that it later came to occupy in all of our frames of mind, right? Nobody thought it could be this bad. So initially what was happening was, me and two friends of mine, we thought we'd start a YouTube channel because we were generally interested in a lot of things like politics and all. We wanted to make opinion editorials and videos because we thought maybe that would be a good way to spend our time in that in between phase where class 9 had ended and 10th hadn't begun yet. And that's how the thing started initially. We wanted to make videos, we made a few. Now, after that point, suddenly things started getting very bad very fast. And we thought that, okay, maybe we have to do something about this. This is not good.
Mm.
Obviously, we had no idea what we were getting ourselves into.
Mm.
It started off with us trying to go around our colonies collecting spare clothes that people had, and finding tailors who at that point were basically out of work again because a lot of these restrictions were just starting to come in. And we wanted to use these rag clothes to get masks made, which we could then distribute.
Mm.
We had no grand plan of what we
Mm.
want to do. We just
Mm.
knew that, okay, this is a thing that's starting to spread, masks help, and this might be a good way of us being able to give back and maybe make it slightly less gloomy for everyone around us. That is how it started. More friends joined us, some from school, some from our colonies,
Mm.
and soon we had a small team who were all going around and trying to do this. Then one thing happened after the other. We realized problems with this model. We realized problems with having to sanitize a lot of these clothes. Slowly we started thinking about how we can scale. Then we thought that, okay, maybe we can crowdfund this. We saw online about things like GoFundMe and all. Like, obviously no one around us had done anything of the sort at this point, but we thought that, okay, maybe this is just something that can work, right? And yeah, that's how we started off there. And before we knew it, the entire thing scaled up in a way that none of us had expected when we were beginning with it. It just grew rapidly. Lots and lots of people started joining us. Suddenly it was not something of our school anymore. It was people all over from Delhi. Then it was people from different cities. And before we knew it, we had lots of different people trying to do their own thing in different cities in different parts of the country. Then once we had a more structured system for crowdfunding available with us, we found out about something called donor box. This allowed us to make campaigns for anyone who wanted to fundraise for us, and they could set their own target. They decided how they worked, when they wanted to work, a very decentralized sort of thing. And after that, we just expanded into more things one after the other. We expanded into menstrual hygiene. From masks, we expanded into things like distribution of sanitary napkins, of sanitizer, milk, meals, lots and lots of things. Now, again, in hindsight, it was if I knew what I was getting into, I probably would not have done it. Then came the second wave, and that changed a lot of things for me, for me personally also. So in the second wave, there was, till that point, we were essentially just involved in the distribution of a lot of things. But the nature of what COVID was also, I think, changed fundamentally for all of us during the second wave. because suddenly there was this huge shortage of things like oxygen, of hospital beds. Like we were waking up to this reality that okay, maybe we were thinking that okay, then there is, for fallback, there is at least a health infrastructure that we can fall back on. We were waking up to this reality that okay, maybe there is no infrastructure, there is just chaos. And I've had, at that point, I was personally involved with connecting a lot of people who reached out to us for help during with access to things like beds or oxygen. I was personally involved in connecting them with whatever, wherever we knew that resource might be available. And it took a very bad toll on me in a way that there have been around 20 to 25 days in that time of the second wave, where in the three digit numbers, I was talking to people trying to get them admitted, and by the end of the day they passed away.
Yeah.
The hospitals were not allowing people to come to collect the remains of their family members, and now I was left to deal with the logistics of what to do with 10 dead bodies. Like, in hindsight, I think it would have been good for me to take a break at that point, but I didn't know that, right?
Yeah.
Like, after the second wave, it really affected me in a negative way, with my mental health personally. Like, I've been on psychiatric medication after that, which still continues. But yeah, which brings me back to when I say it's maybe better to identify realistic and workable things that we can do in a healthy way for ourselves as well, rather than trying to change things radically. Because again, of course, I didn't know what were the costs that are involved with what I'm trying to do here. I didn't even know that there is a cost. And by the time I found out, it was too late to back out or to do anything about it. You couldn't possibly mitigate it, right? So I think that is just something that we all need to be careful about in this space, because again, it's all very new, right? There is no, like I was saying, there is no fixed trajectory, there is no rule book. So yeah, but other than that, it was an experience. It taught me a lot of things about how I work, what I'm interested in. Like, I have an inclination towards sociology, which I found out about at this time. And it is largely connected with the work that I did in the NGO, because I realized that, okay, there is,
Mm,
as a society, this is a problem.
mm.
Now, to understand why we have not been able to respond to it so far in a manner that is acceptable or ideal, I need to understand the society first. So a lot of my liking towards the subject stems from what I saw around me at this time.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's basically that.
Okay.
Like,
Well, Manomoy, you are
yes,
clearly a very remarkable young man. You are just a first year law college student. You don't have a bachelor's degree yet, or do you?
I don't, sir.
No, you don't. That's what I'm saying. You're a remarkable young man. I'm very impressed by
You, sir.
not what you are saying, but the topics that you are talking about. Whether I agree with you or disagree with you, that's secondary. The first thing is I don't hear young people of your age talk about these topics. And then next, what I will say is that I respect what you're saying. Whether I agree or disagree, I respect what you're saying. It is actually quite remarkable. And very few people say, look, I chose law and I want to do sociology. So your heart is in it, your passion is in it, and you can hear it and you can see it. So it's actually quite remarkable that at this age you have this passion. You're not the first person who I've heard, but it's rare. Let's put it this way, it's rare.
Thank you.
So I'm really happy to hear what you are saying, and we can discuss some of the ideas that you put forward offline rather than having a discussion here, because
Right,
this is not place is not for me to talk; it's for you to talk. Okay, so I don't want to
right.
have a discussion because I tend to talk too much. Okay, that's what my wife tells me. So, so I'd rather leave it to you. So tell us about other aspects of your life, because you've talked about some, but tell us some other aspects of your life so that we get to understand how you made your decision, for example, to take law rather than other subjects, and what you intend to, what are your, entertainment, hobbies, and
Right, right,
activities, so on. So let's hear some more of you.
right. So law for me basically was just the lowest effort way of having a touch with the humanities. So my background essentially is this: I was never really a great student in school, but I enjoyed the social sciences a lot more than I enjoyed my STEM subjects. So
Okay.
when I came to 11th and I had to choose my streams,
Hmm.
I went with the humanities
Yeah.
subjects. And like what I realized was that okay, the avenues that are open to me, available to me after this point, they are fairly limited when it comes to the humanities subjects. Like law is one of the few things that gives me a constant touch with my education in law is grounded in a base in the social sciences, which is what I wanted. And at the same time, there is also a relative structure to what my work would look like if I were to do this. And that is what essentially like motivated my decision to do law. It was a tough call because I also like I've mentioned already, sociology is a subject that I really enjoy, and I considered doing like my pursuing my further education in sociology. But yeah, I chose to do law because it's also that it to gain an understanding of the law, I also have to study a lot of other social sciences, which is a part of it that I enjoy a lot.
Okay. So
So
is this a 5-year degree or a 3-year degree? How does it work?
so this is a 5-year degree.
All right.
So for the 3-year degree, that is the one where like that is the one that you go to once you've already done a graduation. This is the one that you do right after 12th.
Is it
So
hard to get into? Is it hard to get into?
uh, it's like they have this test like the JE only. It's called the CLAT.
Yeah.
So the admissions, it works through that.
Uh,
Now I've been told that like when I talk to my friends, I see people who've been coaching for this for a long time.
yeah.
So yeah, I don't know really because for me it just happened.
Okay. All right.
It just
All
happened.
right. All right. Okay. Good. All right. And you have any advice for young people in 11th and 12th, because you're just pretty close to that time period.
Right,
You seem to know your way, so tell them how you made your decisions. You're giving a little bit of it, but some advice, some tips for them.
right. So I think of that question, I just think of something I wish I would have known when I was in that place, maybe. And I think one thing that I wish someone told me at that point was it's okay, it's not that serious. Just do what you feel like doing. I know it can feel like you're missing out on a lot and everyone else around you seems to be doing very well, but it's all right. It's that is one time in your life where you genuinely have the time to and the opportunity to explore and find out. it's it's good to fail at that time because at least you tried.
Yeah.
Like it's that is something that I stressed about a lot back in 11th because again I saw these people around me and I felt like I was just not doing enough, or
Mm.
whatever I was doing wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
I think in hindsight I just feel that maybe it's maybe it was
Yeah.
it's
Okay.
all right to just go along with the flow and see where life takes you at that point, maybe.
All right. Okay. Wonderful. Anything else? Final words from you.
mm, okay, again something that I wish I knew, but I think it's also very like I think this is for people again who are trying to do something similar to what I did at that point. Take something in take pick up a hobby or something in life, but have some space in your life that is exclusively for yourself, something where you can unwind. Otherwise it just tends to pile on and keep piling on till it gets to a point where it's very difficult to deal with it.
Okay.
Like I mentioned about my entire thing with my medication and the issues that I've faced, I think I didn't have a lot of balance in my life at that point in time. I tried to put myself into something, and that was the only thing that I was doing. Maybe that is good for some time, but for extended periods of time, it becomes unsustainable. So, yeah, just that maybe.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Manomoy. It is wonderful to have you here. You have actually validated the reason for this channel, and that was for seniors to shut up and listen to the young because they have something to say. You have something to say. Whether one agrees with you or disagrees with you, you have something to say. And society needs to realize this, that young people have something to say and they should be allowed, given a chance to say what they want to say. All right, good. Let's end it
Right.
here today. Don't go away. I want
Yes.
to talk to you offline. Um,
Right.
Let's end it here. Okay, bye everybody. I'll be back with another young person or an expert soon. Bye till then.